Oh, there you go. Craig, did you just hit that?
Yeah, I'll just do
Okay.
it that way.
There you go.
Right.
So,
And
okay.
I have the ability to pause it now too.
Okay.
Screen sharing, I can't see it.
Okay.
Ah, perfect.
you.
Great. Thanks,
Thank-
guys. I'll mute myself now.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Marty.
much for that. Okay. So we've done the introductions and gone through the etiquette, and now we're on the agenda, and we're going to go to the next slide. Do you want to take this, Connor? The next
Sure,
couple slides?
Yeah, my pleasure. So, based on our attendee list, that some of you have been around and involved in a lot of this history, but for anyone who is not, Pocket Park is a small area in a neighborhood in Cotati that Daily Acts worked in partnership with the city and with volunteers back in 2009 to transform what was 5,000 square feet of lawn into what is now a water-wise garden inspired by a food forest that saves an estimated 65,000 gallons of water per year. 7 years later, this side of the park across the creek on the Eagle Drive side of the neighborhood was created to be a wildlife corridor planted with native species that's very low water use and drought tolerant. And over the years, we've had many volunteer work days to replenish mulch, prune trees and shrubs, and pull weeds. And we've done a lot of weed pulling, and that is part of what is driving the work that is planned for the park. You'll hear more about that soon. So just a couple pictures to show the process over the years. On the left here, we have the true before. You can see this area of lawn along with this conifer here. I think it's a cypress that's no longer on site. And then the installation process with volunteers on the right. Like I mentioned, we've had many work days. This is part of the sheet mulching process. And then just a quick glance at Pocket Park along the sidewalk. All right. You want me to keep going
Okay.
here, Craig? Or?
No, I'll go ahead. Thank you for that, Connor. And then I just wanted to mention we're now up to 9 attendees, which is great. Thank you for joining us. All right. So as I said before, the focus here are the planned improvements, which have been long awaited. We've designed some pathways in a central plaza, and they're ADA compliant, so they have gentle slopes and they're the proper width. There's a water bottle filling station, and there'll be a place for pet, to fill up pet watering bowls, and then benches in the middle, and we'll be taking a poll on the picnic bench, whether to have a picnic bench in the middle or not. We'll also be taking a poll on the different pathway options. I think there's 5 of those. We've identified, if you go out there today, you'll see that some of the plants have tags on them, and those are the ones that are really we've deemed to be healthy and established, and we would like to keep those. There's some other plants that are would not marked, and so they would be removed along with the mulch and the soil, some of the soil. So that's going to be a process of taking off the top mulch and then seeing if there's what's actually become compost and soil, and then putting that aside and preserving it to bring it back in after the work has been done. We're looking to refresh the plantings, replace the irrigation, and there's a interpretive sign out there which is warned is to switch it out and put a new one in there. We talk about this in more detail in the next slide too.
Yeah, I would add that, you know, if you went out there today and looked at the flag plants, there might be some that are looking healthy that don't have flags. We're going to do another round of marking plants before work begins to ensure that we're really making our most informed choices on those plants.
Okay, so to accomplish that work, we're like we said, mark the plants and then scrape the site of excess mulch, which there's quite a bit of, the weeds and the weed seed, and locate the rigid water pipe. So we've got the water source, and then rigid water pipe goes out there in a number of locations and before becoming the flexible irrigation pipe. So we wanted to locate those and kind of see what kind of condition they're in, and just mark them. So when we're doing the grading, that we're not going to be damaging those. And if we have to relocate that fixed pipe, we will. This will be done by primarily Department of Public Works by the city. Then we're going to mark out the paths and rough grade the site, then do the fine grading of the path. So you'll see the pathway locations marked out in the gathering area. That's the time to install the rigid pipe and get those final locations. Then we'll likely have a contractor come in to put in the pathways, and those pathways are going to be the decomposed granite, the DG paths with a binder in them. So you'll see that's becoming a city standard at the Veranda Faletti Ranch. You'll see that material used, as well as just last week, we had a pathway put on West School Street between Sierra Avenue and out that way on the west side of town. So that's the type of pathway we're planning on using. And then after that, we're in the home stretch as far as having the hardscape done. We would then have volunteer-led planting to come in and look at the new planting areas and put in plants and the flexible irrigation tubing and get all that work done. And then just a note, there'll be times during construction, just for safety reasons, where the sidewalk would be closed to the public. So it would be certain times of the day. It's not like weeks on end. It would be specific, just limited time periods.
All right.
I think we're good. Schedule of work. So we're gonna try to keep to this time schedule. I think what's really critical here is that you know, we are in a drought, and so this is gonna have to, the planting is gonna happen over time. We'll see where we are when it comes time for planting. But we want to be sensitive to the drought. And so it's not a good idea to put in brand new plants because they take a lot of water. And if we get too far into May, we might be calling that off to the following year. We'll see. Maybe we can scale it back a little bit. But we want to be sensitive to that. Yeah. Okay. So just some improvements that are out there already. This has been all very much an incremental process. So here's an interpretive sign that has been worked out, and it's going to replace the old faded sign. Is that correct, Connor?
Yes, the
Okay.
one that's right along Loretto, LaSalle, or Loretto and Lakewood sidewalk there, the one that's currently cracked. And there's a good chance we'll be able to keep the existing stand and just replace the sign, which is great.
Okay. And then the next one, is there a place where people can see this sign? We could certainly put it on our website, the city's website?
We can put it on Daily Acts website as well. We could have it in both places. There's not currently a spot, but we can make a page for that. So if folks want to look at it in detail before it gets installed.
And soon enough, it'll be installed, so. Okay, and then the next slide, we have, you'll see the kiosk has been installed out there. And this ties into all the other kiosks, the 13 or 15 other kiosks around the city. And the interpretive panels have been ordered, and we're looking for them to be installed in the next 4 to 5 weeks. Okay. Next.
Sorry.
Okay. So now we'd like to get into the meat of the presentation. I hope everybody can see this layout pretty well.
And I can, when we move forward, I can leave the slideshow mode and zoom in on certain things. So just for clarity for everyone in attendance, we're gonna be looking at things in more detail. So if you can't see this macro view very well, don't worry.
Why don't we flip through the next several slides to get people thinking about options, and then if Connor, if you could then come back to this slide and do the zooming in, so that we can see the water filling station and the benches and everything else. It's going to take a while for people to absorb this, I think.
I'm happy to. So these next few slides are the options for different pathway configurations. And so we will be coming back to these and taking polls on what you would like to see. So I can just go through them slowly. Do you want to make any comments or save that until we come back to them, Craig?
Just, I think I'll let you go ahead and introduce each option.
Okay, so this option is with all the 4 potential paths. The creek is over here to our right for anyone not familiar with the park, with the bridge over to Eagle.
And just to be clear, the bordering paths are already existing, and we're not looking to alter those. It's all the internal paths that we're talking about.
Right. So all of our other options include fewer paths than that first one. So here we've got just 2 paths into the central seating area or the plaza. Our third option is again just 2 paths, A and C here. And if you see where path A is, this would be rounded out. It wouldn't be quite so hard of a turn there if we opted for just these 2. We've got 2 different configurations that have 3 paths. So option 4, we have A, C, and D, which would give us these sort of 3 planting areas that you see. And then option 5, we have B, C, and D. And so part of the aim of these more looping paths into the center of the site is to give people access to where fruit trees are planted and encourage people to enter the site and actually, harvest that fruit, or if they feel inclined to help maintain those trees. There have been times where Daily Act staff have been out on the site, and it seems like people aren't sure whether they should be walking through the park or not on the mulch. So we're hoping that these paths would encourage people to engage with the site in that way. And back up to our plan here, I will exit so that I can zoom in. Just a little.
I think we'll go zoom in, explain this a little bit, and then open it up for questions on anything that's been presented before we go into the voting.
I'm having a little delay. There we go. Sometimes my internet doesn't like when I'm screen sharing. Okay, so.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, it's a little grainy, but we'll be able to talk you through it. So starting here in our bottom corner along the existing sidewalk where the 2 sidewalks meet, this is where the current warn sign that we were referring to is placed. So this is where that newly designed sign would be replacing the worn one. And just a few feet away, we have the water filling station. So this would be along the sidewalk, potentially adjacent to path A, if that is one that is opted for inclusion. In our
And that's our water service. That box there is
yes,
the water service to the site. So there's the backflow device, the meter, all of that, and then the irrigation controller.
yes, thank you, Craig.
And just there's some the circles with the X's through them are bollard lights that are proposed along the pathway.
Yeah, I'm not sure if folks can see my cursor here or not, but just along the path on both sides of the sidewalk. So in the center here is our plaza or seating area, which is adjacent to the existing persimmon tree. We would likely be planting a fruit tree to cast shade along the plaza in various spots as well. And so we've got, you can see these dotted lines here, this rectangle in the center. It would be the option for placement of the picnic table, which we'll look at the detail for the ADA compliant picnic table in just a few minutes, and the 3 benches here. Moving through the site, we've got, I believe this triangle here is the newly installed kiosk.
Yeah.
And again, we have an existing interpretive sign. I believe that one was, Craig, was that Katati Creek Critters? Do you know who made that sign?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that one. And then the bridge over the creek here. So again, these, wider paths are existing, whereas these more translucent paths are the proposed areas. And so the last one that isn't shown in the options is that DG with binder TerraPave material will be extended here to connect the existing hardscape to the Laguna Trail with a slope that's ADA compliant. I know that we've got a few more participants here that we didn't have in the beginning. So just to get everyone on the same page, in order to interact, ask questions, and to participate in the poll that we're going to be holding just momentarily, we'll want you to use the raise hand function, which we will call on you to unmute. You will unmute yourself and you'll be able to speak your question. So Craig, maybe this is...
Yeah, and Connor, I think before we get into the poll, let's just, I think we could take questions on what's been presented so far.
My thoughts exactly.
So just to be clear, you're raising your hand now if you have something you want to, if you have questions on what's being presented. So we'll take those raised hands.
All right, Marlena, I'm unmuting you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I have a question about how far the DG will extend onto the Laguna Trail.
Craig, do you have an answer for that one?
We're going to the property line. Our main concern is the transition. It's a little bit of a slope there and there's tripping hazards. So we want to make that a nice smooth transition. So it'll just conform to the existing trail until we can smooth it out. So right there, it's shown at that property line. And that's going to be pretty close to where it'll be.
Great. I have a few other questions. I'm curious if we can remove and yet still provide the safety, but get rid of those white barriers with the yellow diamonds on them. I think they're really a visual distraction to any improvements you're making. They look terrible, frankly. Is any of that part of the plan?
You're referring to the barriers on the right side of the design here that are like above the creek?
They're on both sides of those trails that go down to the Laguna path.
Kind of like an end of sidewalk barrier, I think. We hadn't considered that, but we will.
Please do, because when one stands on the path and walks towards the bridge, especially now with the newly installed interpretive kiosk, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's visually unattractive in my eyes to have that much stuff going on, and those signs don't really fit in with any of the character. That's just a comment on that. One last question is about the water filling station. Is it tied to that location because of the water box?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. If we were to put it somewhere else, it would be additional piping and costs.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Marlena. All right, looks like we have a question from Sherry. Sherry, I've just unmuted you. But you'll have to unmute on your end too.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
I just had a comment about, from what I can see, the most common traffic pattern for people walking is to just want to continue along the Laguna path. Back and, they're going along the creek and they just come up because physically that's the route. And so it looks like on one side, you've accommodated that, which I think is smart by adding a little path that sort of connects on the Eagle side, but on the other side you haven't. So it's just something to consider, like that's where people walk. They kind of cut that corner, and it's such non-erosible soils. Maybe it's not an issue. We have such clay. We're in this vernal pool plain. So, but that seems to be the way that people walk. That's all I was gonna say.
I totally see what you're saying there. Why not have it continue to fill that gap? So we'll add that.
Yeah, it's a little steep, so you'll have to take a look and see if that's doable. But that's the way people do actually walk, from what I can see.
Okay, we'll see what we can do. It'll have to be ADA compatible, or have a railing if it's too steep. But yeah, we'll take a look at that. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Sherry. Okay, unless anyone else has a question at this point, we're gonna move on ahead. I'm not seeing any raised hands. All right. Oh, I spoke too soon. John, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Connor. Connor, what's the actual size of that proposed seating area?
Craig, do you know the square footage of this plaza area? I don't have that number at the top of my head.
The width of those paths are 4 feet. So, and then the benches give you some idea. What's the size of that? Can you zoom in, Connor, on the bench? Because
Sure.
that gives us kind of a scale.
And it's gonna be a little bit of a delay to leave the slideshow mode. Sorry, my old laptop.
That bench is, I think, 6 feet by 4 feet, thereabouts.
So it's roughly in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 square feet, something like that.
More than that, more like 400. Let's see.
Sorry, my
Oh,
PowerPoint app is not cooperating.
So 6. I think you're closer to like 350 or 400 square feet, John.
yeah, I was meant in radius there. Okay.
But was there a specific reason you're looking at the plant space that it's taking up?
Well, yeah, and I'm assuming, and I'm not sure based on this, but are there any existing trees in that proposed location?
So there are not that I'm aware of at this time. There's an apple that is just shy of it, and there's also a mulberry in the ballpark. But the only tree in this in the real vicinity is this persimmon, which would not be impacted.
Okay, and then my understanding was there is is it a nectarine tree? Over there in that area?
There's I believe some kind of stone fruit or even a pear that I don't know that it survived this past year. Are you thinking of kind of between the sitting area and the road?
Correct.
Yeah, I know that there was a tree that had, if not completely dead, we were not confident in that it would recover to fruit-bearing health.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess a good follow-up on that, Connor, was this configuration done with that in mind to avoid established plants?
It was, yes. Yeah, thank you for framing it that way for me. There was a planting plan that our programs director, Brianna Schaefer, put together that is in line with these path and sitting area configurations, that was designed with the intention of preserving as many existing plants as possible and then replacing with more appropriate species those that were not successful over the past 13 years.
There's been multiple trees that have gone in there that have not been successful.
Hmm.
But I think there were some conditions that added to that. I don't know if they were planted with the mole and vole gopher baskets underneath, keep those critters out of there.
Mhm.
And then I don't know that they were maintained or kept up over the years. So I hate to see more trees go in there that are gonna come under the same fate.
Yeah,
I guess Lisa, my wife Lisa was out there talking to Brianna a few weeks back, I guess, looking at the different plants and what was potentially slated to be removed and replaced. And there was a conversation that some of those were dead or maybe not going to come back. And I think Lisa indicated that they may have been just dormant because they were bearing some fruit last year. So I'd like to, if we have an opportunity, readdress what's going to come out and what's going to go back in.
yes.
And I know you'll get to that further on, Connor.
Yeah, we will touch on that. And also, before anything is finalized, we are going to revisit and flag, plants that are, or, maybe there are some that we flagged that are no longer in good condition, for example, or vice versa. That was the marking that was done a few months ago, and it was very preliminary.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and we agree. We want, our ideal rather is for all these plants to thrive. Dahliacs can only be out on the site so much. So we're really hoping that with these volunteer-led days that we host later in the spring, we'll create additional community buy-in. Our vision is this is a site that we co-manage with the community. We'd love for the community to feel that they have ownership over not just the park, but all the plants within it, so that they take the joy in harvesting the fruits and also building the skills of maintaining something like an apple tree, for example.
All right. I think, thanks for everybody's input on that. Do you see any more hands raised, Connor?
I do not.
Okay, so we're moving into the voting part of the meeting, and the hands will be an indication of your vote for an option. We're not looking for hands anymore right now. This is part of the meeting for speaking. It's more for your vote on a certain option. So we will go ahead and go through the options, and give everybody plenty of time to raise their hand to vote. So option number 1 is this one with all the paths. And we're looking for hands at this time for option 1.
We'll give you at least a minute or two.
I see 3. Another 5 or 10 seconds. Okay, we have 3 votes for option 1.
All right, and moving on.
Do we want to note who they were from? Okay. Okay. Now we go to option 2. Just got the 2 paths.
And Kate, I see that your hand was up before I switched the slide. Okay. So I'm not seeing any votes for option 2 at this time. We'll give you a little more time.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
It would be helpful to me prior to the voting process to review the options again, just to see what we're voting on. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. No need to apologize. That's a good
was-
point.
Thinking the same thing. Everyone's
All
going,
right, so
what was
really
that
quickly,
option 5?
Yeah, we can, and we'll vote again on option 1 once we go through them. So thank you again, Marlena, for helping us run a better workshop. So this is option 1. Oh, sorry, I apologize. My PowerPoint is being very laggy. Option 1 is all 4 paths. Option 2, we've got just paths A and D. Option 3 is paths A and C. Option 4, A, C, and D. And then option 5 is B, C, and D.
So some things to think about. The more paths, the less planting area, but the more paths, the more access to certain planting beds. So it might be easier to maintain the planting beds with those more additional paths. Access from the street, you either have access or you don't have access, and then access from the internal path. Any other considerations that just run through your head, Connor, and looking at these?
The other consideration is, more on the construction end, which is, like I mentioned earlier, having these 3 planting areas for options 5 and 4 makes it a little easier when we're doing irrigation, but that's just really a one-time consideration. It's not as impactful on the life of the site beyond that. I see we've had a couple hands come up. I'm going to assume those are questions or comments and not votes. Kate, do you want to voice your question or comment?
Yes, I would. Thank you. I'm sorry I came in a little late to the meeting, but I would like to hear about the irrigation. That's exactly the thought I had, is I would want to choose an option that's easiest for irrigation and kind of maximizes the flexibility of irrigation for future planting changes.
Yeah, this gives us an opportunity to kind of master plan the irrigation. And so like we mentioned, the service to this lot is near path A. And so that's where, so the hub is, and then we would have some deep pipes, rigid pipes, strategically placed, which we don't have shown on any of these figures. We'd have to work that out, and have these spigots or water sources strategically placed around the lot. And those would be immovable, they'd be permanent and deep enough so that we could do digging and stuff and not worry about breaking into those. And the flexible pipes would come off of those. My perspective from Public Works is that we can make that strategy works for any of these options. Because the strategy is still the same, to have a readily available water source for each of these planting areas that are formed here. And now is the time to do that. If it's really difficult is to modify the pathways after the fact. You know, this is our chance to get the pathways the way we like them. And down the road, if we say, oh, you know what, we really wanted to have that pathway there after all, that's in my mind problematic, because then we'd have to be retrofitting it. So we're looking at kind of having a blank slate now. We certainly have the established plants in place, but this is the time where we'll be planning out the irrigation. So it's kind of independent of the options is how I see it.
Thank you.
And then Marlena, I see your hand up as well.
Oh, hi. I just want to urge people to consider aesthetics from the approach from Loretto. A lot of people approach that part coming down the street from Oliver's. And I just wanted to suggest that in my mind, a path A is going to be yet another visual disturbance where you've got a big concrete path. You're going to have the sign, the water filling station, and then path A is just going to be this other chunky, broken up visual thing. Whereas if we eliminate or we didn't choose path A, there'd be a beautiful bank of planting that can happen there. And I am confident that people will find their way into the park because all of the other paths will be, of course, visible and very easily accessible. That's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Marlena.
Any other pros or cons out there?
What's option 3 again?
Option 3 is A and C. So we'll just cycle through them one last time before we poll again. So again, option 1 is these 4 paths, A, B, C, and D. 2 is A and D. 3, A and C. 4, A, C, and D. And 5, B, C, and D.
So we're saying 5 is the only one without A.
All right. And Marlena, is your hand still up from before? I guess I have to. Okay, there we go. And then Karen, we'll take one more comment and then see if we're ready to do some voting, polling. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I got cut off from my internet, so I just came back on, but so I don't know if you've talked about benches in addition to the paths, but it would be nice to have a bench where someone could actually look out over the creek and the walkway rather than in the middle of the park.
We're onto the benches, right? I mean, the pathways, and then we'll switch over to the vote on the benches.
Oh, sorry, okay.
No, that's good. It's got us thinking about it.
All right.
I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, so just as a reminder, we're gonna go through each option one at a time and you raise your hand if that's the option you would like to see. So option 1 is all 4 paths, A, B, C, and D.
Okay, we're taking raised hands as your vote for option 1 at this time. Okay, we've got 1 vote. Okay. We'll keep the votes anonymous.
All right.
On to option 2.
Option 2, A and D.
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. Option 3, sorry, A and C.
Not seeing any.
All right. Option 4, A, C, and D.
We have some activity on this one.
Mhm.
I know it, we see the toggling on and off. It is confusing with the delay, so we'll wait for that to settle off and settle down a little bit. I'm seeing 4.
All right, we'll give it maybe 5-10 more seconds since there was a bit of back and forth there.
It's kind of settled down now.
All
Yeah.
right, let's move
Okay.
on to our final option 5, which is B, C, and D.
And we'll wait for them to, just to make sure you've cleared it from the prior vote. Okay,
All right,
this looks like it's getting a lot of activity. We have 6, 7. Back to 6. 7. Going once, going twice. There's a little bit of going back and forth. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're still at 7. Okay,
all right, we'll call it 7.
okay.
All right, you can lower your hands now. Thank you for going through this different way of polling with us.
At the, at the risk of extending the discussion, well, no, I think this is good. Okay, we got 1 vote for 1, 0 votes for 2 and 3, 4 votes for 4, and 7 votes for 5. I'm just wondering if it's worthwhile to look at option 5 without C.
As B and D.
Just B and D only.
I had the same thought, actually.
C
So-
is a really quick way of getting into the middle,
Right.
into the gathering area. Can we do the raised hands thing on that? Does anybody want to see this option without C? And then we're looking for raised hands.
So this would just be paths B and D.
I have 3. Okay, hey, Connor, I'd like an opportunity for all 3 of them to speak to see if this was a comment or a vote, so.
Okay.
I
We've
think
got,
we'll go with-
I'll start with John. Was that a vote for B and D, or did you have a comment, John?
I thought we could eliminate C, but the only concern I have on that is if you do have folks that are maybe considerate or concerned about ADA accessibility to the center, C might be the easiest for them versus D and B. That would be the only consideration. Otherwise, it just seems like an unnecessary entrance when you've got 2 others relatively close by.
Very important reason.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hey, Doc. 363, I saw your hand up for a while. Is it a vote or a comment?
I can make a comment. I would like to see, I'd like to have a vote on eliminating path C. It seems it might be a little bit more visually pleasing to me to not have C there.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
you,
you.
then Kate.
Hi. I just wanted to comment that no matter, if you leave out the most direct pathways, they're going to develop naturally anyway. That's my experience anyway with public spaces. I worked in 3 public works departments in different cities, and you will see a worn path from the sidewalk on Loretto, and you will see the closest that C path will probably be used anyway, whether you put in a pathway or not. And I would be okay with that, because I think, it's supposed to be kind of a natural setting. So probably the fewer paths, the better. But I would expect that there will be a natural access for those who are just walking into from the closest direction.
Thank you. Yeah, and with the way that the site is planted, there will be space that is just mulch. That's good for ways that people can get into the site to maintain plants and to harvest. And yeah, thank you for that comment.
John Moore. John?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand. It was just, the only comment is that, listening to those other comments, it makes sense, because you are gonna have people that are gonna just walk there, but maybe it's best to just leave that C there.
And then Karen.
I was going to add to that, since John already remarked on the disability issue. It's not a minor issue, it's a major issue. And a lot of people who use that walkway have walkers or canes or strollers, baby carriages, and it would be difficult for them to walk on mulch. And especially if the benches are in there, or if people want to meet some other people in there, it would be better to have at least one path that they could have some sort of pavement to walk on.
Thank you. Okay, really good input. 7 is the number to beat. So I think we'll put, considering all those comments we just received, let's put an option 6 on the table, which is B and D only, and it would need to beat the 7 to be our number 1 choice. So at this time, we'll take votes on, thank you. Yeah, put that X through the C.
I'll make it a little easier to see. There we go.
We're taking votes. This is now option 6. We're adaptable here. It's holding pretty steady at 2. Okay, I think we've got 2 votes for 6. So number 5 it is. Okay, thank you everybody for that discussion. That's pretty clear direction moving forward.
Yeah,
Now
I
on-
appreciate the thoughtful engagement and sharing of your perspectives.
While we're in vote mode, are we okay going to past 11 to, let's say, 11:30 on the meeting?
Okay.
Okay, I think we are.
Are these votes for okay to go? I'm good with continuing.
Okay, me too. Yeah, I think we're all, yeah, we're getting votes coming in from everybody.
Just a
mentioned it.
reminder, if anyone wasn't here in the beginning, we are recording this. So if you do have to run at 11, we will share out the recording on the city's website, and we can make it available on Daily Act's website as well, if anyone needs to leave.
Okay, so the next point for input is having a picnic bench. If anyone's gone to Veranda Fletti Ranch, you'll see that picnic bench area. And it's hard to see on this figure, but it's made out of the E-Trex type material. It's gotten a lot better over the years, but it's it doesn't splinter. It lasts a long time. You've got the picnic bench with the overhang, and it's going to be on a concrete pad to be ADA compatible. And I don't exactly see the dimensions there. I guessed it was about 6 by 5 or 6, maybe 6 by 6.
Craig, it won't let me exit. So I think if I just stop share for a second, I can restart with it in the work mode, and then I can zoom in if that would be helpful.
Sure. So
Again.
so we've got the gathering area in the middle, and we're looking at putting park benches there, a place just to rest, to hang out, have something to eat. And so we've put this into 2 questions: yes or no on a picnic bench. And so the picnic bench, if we say yes to a picnic bench, we still have benches, is the idea. There is room for the picnic bench and for benches. And then the second question is with the benches, do we want benches with the backrests, or with no backrest? And the placement of these features in the gathering area is still, we would still optimize what those would look like. But there does appear that there's room for a couple benches and the picnic bench, or if the picnic bench is not there, for 3 benches.
I apologize, it's a little blurry, but I tried to make the lines darker for us so that we can see it at least a little better. So are you seeing the bench diagram now?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the one with the back. I don't know if we have a picture of the one with no back. It's
It
just a
wasn't.
bench.
Yeah, it wasn't included in the plans.
But these are the metal epoxy finished benches. And then there's the water filling station to the left. If you want to scan over there, that's not what we're voting on, but okay. And then the top part is the picnic bench right there. Yeah, we can see that. I can see that pretty well. Hopefully everybody else can too.
Yeah, the top left shows the overhang here as well as down.
Yeah, I just can't. Yeah, the dimensions are pretty close to being something like 8 by 6, something like that.
Craig, can I ask you a clarifying question?
Sure.
When you're talking about picnic benches, are you talking about a picnic table with benches?
These are all fixed. The benches and the table are all fixed into the concrete pad like they are at the Veranda Fletti Ranch.
Okay. So then you got the question regarding the benches, whether they have a back or not. And then the conversely, do you want to have a picnic table with benches in there? Is that
Correct.
correct?
So yes, those are 2 exclusive questions right now. So we're going to get to the benches with the backing on them or not, but this is what the picnic bench would look like.
And as a refresher, I can show the design that shows the proposed placement of the picnic bench. This would be right here in the center, this dotted rectangle with the arrow out.
And we have discretion on where that would go. This is demonstrating there's room for it.
Shall we poll on?
Yeah, bench or picnic bench, picnic table, let's say it put that way, or no picnic table. So
Raise a hand if you would like there to be the picnic table.
it's holding at 4. We have 12 attendees and we're holding at 4, saying yes, they want a picnic table. Okay. Let's clear that out. Take down your hand. Good, thank you. And raise your hand if you do not want a picnic table or prefer not to have a picnic table. And there's quite a few people not voting.
Which I suppose could just be, no preference.
I'm hoping everybody has that raised hand feature.
I think unless there were folks who voted for multiple options during the pathway configuration, we had all 12 voted.
So we have 5 no's. Okay. That's pretty close.
It is.
Four yeses and 5 no's.
Someone just lowered a hand. I don't know if that
Yeah,
was a
no,
change of heart.
no, the votes, the voting's done.
Okay.
Yeah, the 4 and the 5. I think we could build this all without the picnic bench. And then sometime in the future, there's no water, no electricity to it. It would be easy enough if there's no irrigation. We would keep irrigation pipes clear from this area, kind of going around the perimeter. We could install a picnic bench sometime in the future, put the pad in the bench. So it's not this is it kind of a decision. Okay, so for do you want to have discussion on that, or let's move on? Let's move on to the benches.
I did see a couple of hands come up. So really quickly, if
Okay.
if these are comments or questions you have, keep your hand up.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with Karen.
I don't have a terribly strong opinion either way, but it just seems like kind of a small area to have a picnic table, and in Ladybug Park, it seems to attract people who just hang out during the day. But either way, I don't have that strong a preference.
Okay, thank you. And then Mr. Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I had stepped away. When I came back, I saw that the voting on the picnic bench had occurred. I did not get a chance to vote.
Okay. Would you like to voice your vote now? Are you comfortable doing it on audio?
I'm comfortable on audio. I vote for the picnic bench.
Vote for. All right. Well, that makes it an even split. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
John?
Thank you. I can't imagine people are looking to have a picnic in Pocket Park. If anything, they might be coming through and they may want to sit and eat something. A bench would suffice on that, but I just don't see it as a destination worthy of a picnic table. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kate.
Oh, I just had a comment. I don't really care one way or the other. I voted for it, but I would be happy without it too. I just thought it'd be a convenience for those working there, for volunteers, and to put tools on or to sit and eat their lunch, in between, and encourage them to stay a little longer. But I honestly think it could also be an attractive nuisance. So I can withdraw my vote for and just be neutral. I really don't have a strong opinion one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Connor, we have one more from Nick. No, I think Nick.
Yeah, I do see that hand up. Thank you. It was not up at the top. Nick?
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Would you guys consider the option of moving the picnic table, let's say, to the top of that circle? And that way it's I'm also kind of in the field of in between the two of it could attract, there's certain people that do go to other places and sit on the benches that are questionable. So maybe if you were to use it at the same time, you're not kind of in the main path of travel for somebody else that's just passing by or wants to sit at the bench. Because let's say if you are having a picnic, it's, once that gets filled out with the other benches, it'll be kind of a tight space and not a lot of, privacy, even though it's a small space.
Mhm.
Okay.
And just to repeat what Craig said earlier, we're not beholden to this exact location.
Okay, Connor, I think we've gotten some good input on this.
I agree.
That if I'm interpreting the input of the majority correctly, we're not really strongly for a picnic bench. So we floated the idea, and there wasn't any, overwhelming majority for it. It was kind of split. But if we take the couple people that said, hey, I don't really feel strongly one way or the other, and then the attractive nuisance kind of weighs in on it a little bit. So the takeaway for me that I interpret is that we could put this on hold. It's a no for now, and we could potentially consider it sometime down the road.
Okay.
Yeah. On to the benches now. I'm not sure if this is a really big deciding point or not. The benches without backing, people could straddle them, sit on either side of them.
Right.
Give some options there. And then the ones with the backing, just has that more comfortable seating. You can just sit back and kind of look out over the view. So again, I'm not sure if there's going to be a really strong opinion one way or another on this, but the first vote will be for, what did we decide, with the backing?
Sure. Yeah, first vote with backing. Not to throw a curveball in, Craig, but would it be a possibility to have a combination, like 2 with the back, 1 without?
Just want to complicate things.
Yeah, can't help myself.
Let's see what happens. If we get kind of a split vote on this, maybe that's the third option, is to do a hybrid, to do it like 1 or 2 of one and 1 or 2 of the other. But
Okay.
let's keep it clean right now. Just keep it straight up. So a bench with a backing. We want to see your hand if you're for that.
All right.
This is not to speak. It's a vote at
Mhm.
this time.
Looking like a pretty strong majority so far.
I'm seeing everybody but 2, but 3.
We've got 9 votes for benches with backs.
Okay.
Go ahead and lower those hands. Thank you. And now for benches without backs.
We've got
Got
3. Everyone's very responsive. I like this. Okay. Now, hybrid.
based on the numbers, I guess the hybrid would be,
So it'd be maybe 2 backs and 1 without a back type of thing. But, okay,
we had a momentary hand, but I like that.
let's
that's
do the let's do the hybrid. Just to confuse things. Oh, we've got a few. Oh, quite a few. Got 6. Okay, we have 6. I'm interested to hear what people have to say about this. If they feel strongly one way or the other. So let's open it up for comments.
Just seeing a hand from Karen. Karen, go ahead.
Well, I just liked your comment about being able to turn in one direction or the other, but then a lot of people would want and need the support of a back. And so I like the idea of having one bench without a back.
Thank you.
Got Kate.
What was, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of the meeting again, but what were the reasons for having a bench or benches?
Over the years, there have been, at least from Daily Act's perspective, we've heard from many community members the desire for places to sit in Pocket Park. There aren't that many benches along this part of the Laguna Trail or the Creek Trail. And so just in, even anecdotally, like times that we're out there doing work days, people have voiced that request. And even once this meeting was announced, a few people who emailed and said they couldn't be here expressed their desire for seating.
Mhm.
Craig, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's a great explanation. Thanks.
Okay, so the comment I have then is, to me, if I'm there to enjoy the aesthetics of by sitting and looking at the garden, I'd want at least one bench with no back so that I could choose to face any direction I wanted to face. But I also see, again, I know that benches can be constrictive because they have to be fastened down, and they're also, again, attractive nuisances. So I have mixed feeling about benches. I think that people can also bring their own chairs. That's, I'd rather see a more natural setting and less spent on concrete. I know we have to do ADA, but it just seems a little constrained to have the benches fixed and with backs. That's all.
Well, just in review, we have Sherry wants to speak.
Yeah, can I make a couple of comments about something other than benches, or do you want me to hold that for later?
I think if we have any remaining questions on benches, we might want to wrap those and then we can come back.
Sure thing.
And then one more. Okay, I think we're done with the bench
I can't.
discussion. The takeaway there is we have 9 with backings. We had 3 with no backs, and then the hybrid, the interest came back up again to 6. I think from the city's perspective, we'll install, I think 2, maybe 3 benches with backs, but not overdo it. And then again, as time goes on, maybe we're only looking at 2 benches out there And as time goes on, we'll either put another one in, or we'll just kind of leave it like it is, but we don't want it to be too congested out there. So maybe 2 benches might be what we'll go with. And, you know, after the workshop, send myself an email, send Connor an email, and on any kind of finer points on these items. So this isn't the end all discussion. What further items? Let's see, and we're almost entering the wrap up stage of the workshop. But let's go back to the slideshow.
Okay.
I think that was a really good discussion.
It looks like we might have one hand up.
I think
Marlena, do you have one last comment before we move on? And then after that, we're gonna have to keep it moving.
I do. Just quickly, I wanted to honor the comment somebody else made earlier, and it sounded good to me. Perhaps the idea of, and who knows, maybe a backless bench, but one that is more towards the side, that's purpose would be to look out into the Laguna as opposed to kind of looking within the planned circle. And something just to think of for now or later, you know, a bench that is whose view is the Laguna. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. So Craig, our next slides are about just a really high level overview of the planting, which we'll be able to talk about more in detail at a future date. So if you'd like, I can just give a bit of an overview of what we're looking at here.
I think what this shows is that it is sensitive. The pathways are sensitive to keeping the established plants, not disturbing them. And it seems to be evident in this figure. It's a little bit of a schematic, so it's not exact.
And this is, I can just a little bit too, you know, this design was first drafted a couple of years ago. So this is kind of just a baseline that we're looking at. You know, there are the plants that are highlighted are plants that we're expecting to keep. It's not exhaustive. You know, there are other plants that will remain. This is just to give you a sense of what the area of planting would look like.
Okay.
And so as we said before, we will be retaining the healthy existing plants. We're looking at planting in both additional edible species, which is a request we've heard from the community, as well as introducing more native and drought tolerant plants to replace others that were not successful on site. So this is just kind of a sweeping look at some of the options that we've considered. And Craig, I think we were going to take some input on how we might want to proceed with the community. And if we,
So we're talking the hardscape has been done, the irrigation, this rigid pipe irrigation's done. We've taken the mulch and a lot of the compostable material off the site and kept it at the corp yard for reapplication. Not so much the wood chip mulch, but anything that's really become good compostable soil and for reapplication. And so fast forward to May of this year, we're looking at bringing in volunteer work groups to do the plantings, add the soil amendments and all, and that we do want to keep sensitive for the drought. So well, if we're pushed off into June with the hardscape, I think the planting is going to be more focused on maintaining the health of those plants that are established out there, maybe putting off any new plantings till that fall when the days get shorter and it's less of a strain on our water supply. So it's a little bit give and take, but there's going to be another opportunity for that. I think going out on the site and Connor, would Daily Acts put together additional figures with proposed plants and where they would go? And would that be I think we would look for that to be opportunities for additional community input.
Yeah, we will update that schematic that you saw with more of these options. Like, for example, on that, the draft planting plan we were looking at included blueberries, and we're not looking to put blueberries on the site because of their water requirements. So we're going to update that, and that can be something I share out with you, and we can see how we want to move forward from there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this was just kind of a sneak preview to how the planting question would be approached. So there'll be more opportunity for input. Okay, next slide. And this is our wrap-up slide. Appreciate everybody giving up an hour and a half, a couple hours on their Saturday. I know time was very precious to everyone. And the input I thought was just fantastic today. So thank you for not only being here, but being very involved in, what could be a very stilted kind of Zoom environment. I felt that this was very lively and good discussion, very constructive exchange. This doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. And so we've got Daily Acts to get in contact with Connor from Daily Acts. Is that your email there or the Daily Acts email?
That is the Daily Acts email, but you can, if you reach out to that one, it'll get relayed to me. Or if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm sorry, I don't have it on the screen, but it's just my first name, CONNOR @dailyacts.org. And feel free to email either of those. And just to plug, we're not out there nearly as much as those of you who are rooted in the community. So, if you're noticing things about certain plants, feel free to email me and say like, hey, I see that, like you mentioned, John, this tree might have just been dormant and actually you might want to consider keeping it. Like, this is information we want to know. So don't hesitate to share those thoughts with me.
And then my email address is there too, and my phone number. And feel free to send me emails or give me a call. This would be on more of the hardscape type thing. I've got the connection with Public Works and with any contract work we might be having out there. So irrigation, how that's all in the pathways, and how the water filling station details, anything like that would be, I'd be the person to contact. And so I think any wrap-up questions from the participants too. I see John's got his hand up. Welcome his comments.
Thank you, Craig. I just want to say thank you to Connor, thank you to Craig for facilitating this. The only question I had for wrap-up was it looks like it was recently sprayed over there for maybe weed control or something. Did we spray that? And if so, what did we spray it with?
So John, I've gotten that question a couple of times now, and I have asked our superintendent and our PJM, our landscape contractor, that, hey, have you sprayed any herbicides, pesticides on that park? And the answer has come back, no. And it is a prohibition against our contract and the city policy, as you well know, to use any synthetic herbicides. So we're continuing to follow that up. I don't know if it's these plants that are just going dormant and turning brown, or it's the lack of water at this time, but I would be very concerned if we were applying herbicides and if our contractor is in fact being less than honest with us, because that would be a reason to go with a different contractor. So we're taking this extremely seriously, and unless they're just being untruthful when directly to us, it's a very concerning thing if it's being applied. So right now, the indication is where it's that the herbicides are not being applied. But we're continuing to stay on top of that.
All right, thank you, Greg. It just looks too uniform. But that it very well may be just the nature of that particular location. So, thank you.
See, we've got a hand up from Karen.
I just wanted to ask if there was any thought about lighting, like was done at the LaSalle Bridge. There are a lot of people who complain about the lack of lighting, especially people go across the bridge, like back and forth to the store from the Bird Section neighborhood.
Thank you for bringing that up. I don't mean to cut you off. It's okay. We have, we didn't spend too much time on it at this meeting, but we did briefly mention the lighted bollards along the pathway that were shown in the figure. And then with your, we had talked briefly in our internal meetings about doing lights along the bridge, like at the McGinnis Bridge across the Laguna. And since our power will be taken from the Eagle side of there, we will be having conduit come across the bridge. So it's something we can incorporate. Yes, we will. I think that's something the bollards are definitely in the plans, and I can't see why we can't just add the lights to the bridge as well. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, John. I'm not seeing any other hands up. Oh, I spoke too soon. Marissa, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I know that we don't have a specific date yet, but I was just wondering about how many volunteers you're looking for and how we can stay in the know. My husband and I found out about this meeting from a flyer. So I just want to make sure that I can keep informed on this specific event, and I would love to volunteer.
Excellent. Would love to hear that. So the best way to stay informed of the volunteer events, if you could send me an email or this more info at dailyacts.org, an email, I can be sure that you get an invite directly, but we have a few different outreach channels that we'll be using. So we have our, Daily Acts, we have our mailing list, we have social media. We share things, all of our flyers with the city. The city will post it most likely on their website and social media accounts. At times we've done things, mailers in the water bills. We have a few options. We're going to try to publicize it as well as we can. Basically, we want as many volunteers as we can get that can, fit in Pocket Park without it being, too crowded. Of course, COVID permitting, if things are continuing to on this trajectory of restrictions lightening, if things go the other way, we would cut it down to reduce numbers. But historically, anywhere from 12 to 20 has been really successful, but the more the merrier as we see it.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you out there.
And just to the other point, we're looking at May for the volunteers. So that's when the hardscape will be complete. And we're looking at soil amendments and plantings would be, at least right now, around May.
Thank you, Craig. Okay, Sherry.
I wanted to make a comment on the interpretive sign. If I recall correctly, the current sign has some specific information, like lists specific plants. And I'm pretty new to the neighborhood. When I read that, I was actually inspired to put some of those same species in my own yard. So it was just a quick glance, but it looks like, sort of nitrogen fixation and maybe carbon sequestration, which is nice. But I encourage you to have some things in the interpretive sign, if it's not decided yet, that are sort of practical things and not just sort of broad conceptual concepts. Oh, and one more thing, I think you're gonna solicit comments on the planting later, but some of the species that you might be interested in, you can't put in wintertime. So like loquat or pineapple guava, which is currently there and possibly would be on the list to be increase. Those are ones that you can't get them in winter because you can't get them bare root. So those ones you would have to put in spring, but plenty of the other ones, I follow your thinking, Craig, and sounds right that you want to put them in during a wet time of year.
Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, luckily the low quad is already in place and a few years old. But it's good feedback. Thank you.
I think that's a wrap. Thank you all again very much for attending. And we'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you all. I hope to see you out at Pocket Park.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.